trumpets that are sounded, when you read them, let's read through them fairly quickly. Verse 7. The first angel blew his trumpet, and there followed hail and fire mixed with blood, which fell on the earth, and a third of the earth was burnt up. The third of the trees and all the green grass was burnt up. The second angel blew his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. And a third of the sea became blood, and a third of the living creatures died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, blazing like a torch, and fell on a third of the rivers and on the fountains of water. And the name of the star is Wormwood. And a third of the waters became wormwood, and many died of the water because it was made bitter. The fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of their light was darkened, and a third of the day was kept from shining, and likewise a third of the night. Then I looked, and I heard an eagle crying with a loud voice, "Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth." Notice this isn't affecting anyone in heaven. And I would say by extension, those will be unaffected who are in the covenant. Doesn't mean that they're not affected by natural disasters and plagues and things like that normally affect on earth, but they're not undone by it spiritually because they're in the covenant. Does that make sense? Woe to those who are on the earth, and at the blast of the other trumpets, which are three angels are about to sound. Chapter 9 is those three angels, or are those three angels. And those are the three woes. If you thought these were bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. That's what he's saying. This is a big deal. And as you notice, these judgments are less defined, but more intense than the seal judgments. The seal judgments were fairly generic. War, famine, death, and, this is, a third of this, all the green grass, all the water, all of this, very specific. Okay? When you listen to these judgments so far, now it'll be more when we get to chapter 9 to be sure. What was one of the first things that came to mind? What did you think of? What did it remind you of? Egypt. The water turned to blood. The hail came down. The darkness on the earth. Doesn't that sound like the plagues that fell on Egypt? Yes. When you read chapter 9, guess what you're going to read about? Locusts. Oh, that was Egypt, right? You're going to read about more death. The plague of the firstborn. Okay? When it said in the third angel in the waters, the fresh waters turned to wormwood. What is wormwood? Wormwood is a type of plant that's very bitter. It reminds you of Exodus 16. What do you mean, remind you of Exodus 6? When the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea, and the first place they came to, they started bellyaching about water. And so God led them to this spring. But the water tasted bitter, and they didn't like it. So they whined some more to Moses. And God said to Moses, I want you to cut down a tree and throw it into the water, and then the waters will become sweet again. Now, the early fathers understood this symbolically as that the bitter waters that we drink from the earth is the fruits of sin. And it took the tree to sweeten that, to undo the sin. It was a symbolic act. That's how the fathers understood it. For them, it was a literal act. You following me? The point is, here is what happens. It's reversed. The fresh waters, the sweet waters are now made bitter under this judgment because it's the reverse of that. Because you're outside of the covenant, you're not in. That's the point of this. Don't get caught up in Well, when is this going to happen, Chip? Is this going to happen in 2020? You know, is the sun and the moon and the water going to turn to blood? No. Might there be some sort of literal fulfillment of this? Possibly. But that's not its primary meaning. That's what I keep emphasizing. Don't get stuck in all the sensationalism of all of these judgments and plagues and women and dragons and beasts and all that. No. Don't pull back from that and see the message that's being told by these images. That's why I keep giving you all of these Old Testament references. The reason why God uses trumpets is to call us to worship and war. That's what you get out of it. Forget about, all of the sensationalism. Will it happen? I don't know. Maybe. Should that bother you? What if God did do all of this tomorrow? All of the water turns to blood. What are you going to do?
Pray to God.
Pray. Yeah. Are you going to go thirsty like everyone else?
Yes.
Probably. Maybe. Maybe God will miraculously change the water back for you. Maybe, but maybe not. But whatever God decides to do in his providence, you know what? He's smarter than me, and I'm going to trust in him. And say, Lord, I hope that through these judgments you bring people into your kingdom. As we go through this, especially in chapter 9, you'll see what happens when we get into chapter 9, how these judgments affect those who are outside of the covenant versus those who are in. And with that, I'm going to let you go.
Thank you.
Have a great 4th of July weekend, and I'll see you all on the 11th.